Is worrying about politics a waste of time? That's a question I've been asking myself for the last couple months, because it seems like these last couple months, the current events in our country have been just a little extra crazy. And so naturally, it's normal to be angry about these kind of things. And I've definitely experienced a wide range of emotions, a sense of anger, hopelessness, injustice, anxiety, all these kind of things, because it just seems like what's happening is not right. But then I wonder, are these feelings productive? Are they helping me, or are they helping the cause that we're working towards? And that's a good question, right? It seems like in this age of social media and people being chronically online, it's become just a new normal for us to be exposed to political ideas almost constantly. And this might depend on your algorithm, like whether you get a lot of this content. But for me, it's like if it's something you start watching, then the algorithm builds on that and it's going to show you, right? Because it's trying to keep you watching, obviously. So for me, like, I get interested in like a few political videos, just trying to get informed. But then I start subscribing to different politicians and like different kind of like journalists to get a better idea of what's going on. And then like a couple weeks later, my whole algorithm is like politics. And that got a little overwhelming for me, to be honest, especially because what's currently going on is just so wrong. And it can feel really hopeless, because it seems like our president has no regard for telling the truth, and that a small subset of people will take anything he says to be the truth and to be the law of the land. And that's really troubling. But anyways, I'm not trying to take like a super strong political stance in this video, because one thing I've realized is that, okay, microphone's good. We still recording? So one thing I've realized is that when it comes to national politics, a lot of us are deep set in our opinions, for better or for worse. Like, because our political opinions stem from somewhere deeper, right? It stems from like our internal source of morality. And that's not to say that one person's sense of morality is better than the other. There's really no way to know what the true set of morals are. We have our social contracts and our agreements, but at the end of the day, like, we all just prioritize different things, and that gets us to slightly different conclusions about how our country should be run, right? Even though we all want the same thing. We all want to be happy, healthy, be able to afford our basic necessities, but then disagreements come on, the common things we all talk about. So it seems like these days, though, with our president being so extreme, lying so much, and generally just making so many different changes, in a way almost dismantling so many areas of our government, it's very concerning. And it's so natural to feel that way. But then it leads me to wonder, I'm like, what can I do about this? I feel so hopeless. Is this helping me or anyone? So that got me thinking. And what I was thinking about a lot is sphere of influence, right? It's like we don't have much influence over national politics. And so how much worry is too much, or how much information is too much, right? Because I believe it's important to be informed, and you need to take in a certain amount of information to do that. I guess once you go down, like once you come closer on the sphere of influence, we've got maybe state politics, and then we have local politics, county and city. And I'd say generally these types of politics are a little less divisive, because you're finding more local issues that people can unite on, right? and also your sphere of influence is greater, which is cool. We got pretty decent weather today. I was super happy that it's overcast just for the video quality, but there is a little bit of wind. I don't think it'll be a problem. What a weird winter we had in Utah. Like, I'm pretty sad that we didn't get to see much snow, and that obviously has implications for how things look in the summer. You know, snowpack, lake levels, that kind of thing. But yeah, so I heard this quote. It's the antidote to anxiety is action. I really like that one because when we're doom scrolling or only consuming information, we're not acting, and we're just letting this anxiety bubble up inside of us. But when you act, there's a very different feeling, and this is something I actually experienced these last couple weeks, because I spent 2 days at the Utah Capitol in Salt Lake City. I was joining in with a group to do some lobbying, and we were talking about the Great Salt Lake. Wow, this is cool. I've actually been here before, but should we go inside? See if anyone's in here. Oh, it's locked. This used to be unlocked, I swear. Switching hands again. We're good. Super cool little building. But anyways, so we were talking about the Great Salt Lake. If you're not familiar, the Great Salt Lake is a salty lake in Utah, and it's one of the biggest lakes in the West. And what about it? So basically, back in history, a long time ago, Utah used to be underwater in this lake called Lake Bonneville, and naturally the level of the lake went down. I'm not sure if this is relevant information, but nowadays we're left with a few lakes in Utah. We got the Great Salt Lake, Utah Lake, Lake Sevier, I think. But with the Great Salt Lake, the water level has been declining rather rapidly in the last few years, and in part that's a big part of it is due to human activity. We take a lot of water from the tributaries to the lake, the rivers that feed into it, basically. So currently about 50% of the lake bed is exposed. And this is it's a pretty big health concern for Utah, because in the lake bed there are heavy metals and ultrafine particles, and the wind can blow these types of particles all over where about 2 to 3 million people live in Utah, which is crazy. One cool thing about this is a chance for Utah to unite, because people across political ideologies want to see Utah be a livable place that can be healthy for people. So even President Trump recently, he met with Governor Cox and he made it like a statement about saving the lake, which I think is great. You know, we'll take federal funding. That's always helpful. We'll see if anything comes of it. But I did think it was pretty sad that Trump decided, he said, he was like, yeah, the Great Salt Lake, that's real climate change, but you know, it's unlike that other fake climate change stuff. And man, that's pretty sad. Like, guys, the science, look, okay, wait, I'm not gonna try to convince anyone, because at this point it's like, I gotta remember, climate change deniers are in the minority, and at this point it's like, there's no use in trying to convince them anymore. It's the same thing with like the political opinions. It's like, those of us who do know what's going on, we just gotta band together. But anyways, that was kind of a long tangent. So I was lobbying at the Salt Lake Capitol, and we were basically talking about legislation to help the lake. So one way we're doing this is the state of Utah can lease water rights from farmers and send that water to the lake. But there's also lots of talk about water conservation for both cities and industrial places, with the idea that the less water we take from rivers, that more can go to the lake and it can be refilled. And when I was at the Capitol, I found like this experience was really just what I was missing. After a couple months of just hopelessness and doom scrolling, it was a real opportunity to take action and become part of the political process. And I thought that was so cool because when I was there, talking with like-minded people and talking about real change, I didn't feel that hopelessness. I really felt like a sense of hope and being part of something, which was super cool. And I was super surprised because I didn't realize that the Capitol building is basically open to the public. Like anytime it's open, you can just walk in and walk around the halls. There's lots of people there that you can talk to and meet with. And while I was there, I actually got to meet a couple of the senators in the Utah State Senate. So that's a super cool experience. They've already been doing a lot for the Great Salt Lake. One of them told me that we've already set aside $1 billion in funding for the Great Salt Lake, which is a big deal, right? So right now I'm reading this book called Permaculture. It's mainly about designing sustainable human habitats and landscapes, but I found a lot of that book applies to life in general. One of the ethics of permaculture is caring for people. And in this book by David Holmgren, there's a kind of a waterfall, not a natural one, but that's what that noise is. So in this book, Permaculture, in the section about caring for people, he writes, "Care for people starts with the self." I think that really applies for trying to make change in politics. If we're not healthy and secure, then how will we have the means to make change, right? So if we're spending so much time doom scrolling, I think we know by now that this is affecting us negatively, at least a little, when it comes to the way our brains are wired, when it comes to our emotions. And it's been a while for me, but when I really take a break from my phone, I genuinely start to feel different. Here, I'll tell you what I think we can do these days, where we can make a difference and be informed, but maybe experience less worry. So first of all, I would say try to stop doom scrolling. Easier said than done. So let's just move on to the next idea. Second idea, try to change your algorithm. Most apps have like a not interested or like don't show me this button. And if you feel like you're seeing too much political information, then maybe it's time to just start unfollowing the political pages and just start changing your feed. The next thing I'd suggest is try to have some real conversations about politics, like in-person conversations, because it feels like in-person conversations usually carry a greater sense of respect and understanding, and they just feel so much more real. You know, even if you disagree with someone, if you do it in real life, I think it's going to feel better than doing it online. This does require maybe some self-awareness. You need to be aware of if someone's open to that kind of conversation, because politics is taboo and you don't want to overwhelm people that aren't ready to talk about it. You know, along with that, I would say just try to volunteer or go to some sort of event. Just like I found that lobbying event, I found it online. I don't remember exactly how, but there are lots of activist groups that have local chapters that will meet up, do all sorts of things, whether that's just talking about policy, maybe it's cleaning up trash somewhere, protesting. I'm not a big protester, to be honest, but let's wrap this up before the wind gets too crazy. So yeah, try to get involved with some sort of local volunteer group. For example, I've volunteered at a community garden, and that's not necessarily political, but it is an action I'm taking that is benefiting a community where I get to meet like-minded people and that kind of thing. I met some people with the Sierra Club when I was at the Capitol. I think that's a nationwide group that has local chapters, but yeah, the internet's your friend when it comes to that search. Like, I can't find the groups for you. It just comes down to like a sense of awareness, like something we're all trying to cultivate in our lives, you know, whether that's through like some sort of meditation or something, but try to be aware of how you're feeling. You know, if you've been scrolling for a while, just be aware, like, how much of your feed is politics? Does it seem like it's an extremely biased source, possibly? How is it making you feel in this moment, you know? And just like taking that question with you, is like, is this feeling productive? Is feeling this way gonna help anything? Because the last thing we wanna do is let this situation take away our sense of like hope, you know? We have to remain hopeful to get through this. Is worrying about politics a waste of time? I don't think so, but it depends how much you're worrying. All right, that's it. Too windy. See you on the next trail.